Okay, as always, couple minute late. I know you were all waiting, and today is a very special guest. This is probably the guy, the Cosmos guy. Let's say Cosmos. I've been following for a very long time, and actually, thanks to him, I discovered couple other blockchains and projects, and he's not aware of that. But I will mention that to him because I want to discuss. Greg is founder of Akash Network. It's not only project that recently has been making headlines, the crypto headlines, but it was one of the first Cosmos blockchains. Back 2 years ago, it launched. When I was searching for the Cosmos blockchain, there was always like Akash. There was not many of the IBC. Akash was one of the best IBC connected blockchains. So as I said, Greg is the founder of Akash super cloud. So Greg, could you give me a little bit of the like background before we get into chatting about Akash? I want to, because you're very well known in the blockchain space, but I want to know what we were doing before, how you got into this.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to know what other blockchains you discovered um, because of me. But Akash was the first IBC chain. If you think about it, the first IBC transaction happened between Akash and Atom Hub, right? Cosmos Hub. Um, what was it doing before getting into blockchain? So got seriously into blockchain maybe in 2016. Before that, we were trying to do edge intelligence, edge computing, essentially. So the notion that if you trace back, if you have to really deliver workloads in a high performance to the end user, that has two factors, right? The performance of the network and the performance of the device itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I was obsessed with this 100 millisecond delivery times. What that means is if your application responds to every interaction within 100 milliseconds, it feels continuous cognitively from an experience standpoint. That means anything that takes over 100 milliseconds, you start feeling the lag. So if you touch your phone and if you click something that responds within 100 milliseconds, it's fast. 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second, right? So how do you make something that's that high performant is, well, you try to reduce the distance between the device and the server it's serving the content from, and or you improve the performance of the machine itself. But your biggest gain is going to be reducing the latency. We call it the latency is the distance traveled between the device and the server serving it. Apologies, my dog is obsessed with
It's all
with
it's
with
dog
squirrel
friendly,
here.
so it's fine.
But so I was obsessed in making that a reality. So I started, designing multi-cloud or super cloud capabilities to Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is one of these. I guess it's considered to be the most widely used container orchestration framework now. It's used by 80% of the cloud. Back then, nobody knew about Kubernetes, right? So I was one of the early people, talking about Kubernetes and making Kubernetes a super cloud. And we stumbled onto a very incredible problem. So with edge computing, it's very critical that these devices that are serving or the servers that are serving the mobile or device sit at the edge of the network, in the sense like the outer rings of the network. So in outer rings, you have very little control, and the expectation is, in order to be highly fault tolerant, the best pattern is peer-to-peer systems, because at the edge of the network, the likeliness of you dropping a packet back to the home server or the centralized server is very high, right? Because edge of the
Mhm.
network is supposedly very rough and unexpected. You have little control over bandwidth and whatnot. So, how do you really design a resilient system at the edge of the network? Is by going peer to peer. So that's really when I started getting into peer to peer tech from a technology standpoint. And so we ended up designing an edge. And second most important thing is to have data consistency. What that
Hmm.
means is if you are a user in San Francisco, and if you are using a server that's local to you, maybe in California, if you conduct a transaction, that server and someone else accesses the same account from New York, they should have the same data no matter what. It takes about 300 milliseconds for data to transfer from one coast to another. So you need exactly the same amount of data or same data across
Hmm.
regions. Imagine the world, right? So that's called consistency. So you needed peer-to-peer systems and you needed consistency. Now, consistency is hard to achieve when you have peer-to-peer systems because there's no one central point saying what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
It
So I was
so.
upset. Go on.
Mhm. Sorry, like, so it almost seemed like also the way like how you got the crypto, but like you were not like, you don't seem you were like really interested in the blockchain, but it like when I listened to you, you were almost like accelerationist. You wanted to improve the tech, improve the systems. Like, was it some startup you were doing?
Yeah, so I founded Overclock Labs, the company behind
Yeah.
Akash Network, to make edge computing a reality, right?
Right.
So part of the problem was we ended up being creating a BitTorrent style replication system
Hmm.
with Git style Merkle tree verification system. So if you put Git, Merkle tree, and BitTorrent together, you end up with blockchain. So blockchain was a solution to a very hard problem that we were having with edge computing. So that's how I got into blockchain, right? We ended up creating a blockchain without realizing we created a blockchain. So now the question is like, well, do we go fully formal blockchain? Because blockchain was still very early tech in 2016. I mean, we're talking about Bitcoin being the most prominent one, and then Ethereum being a good computer that's supposedly decentralized. And then we did a proof of concept on in Ethereum in 2017 to
Hmm.
understand what smart contracts are, to understand how to do a decentralized application. That's Akash. The version one was actually in Ethereum, and then CryptoKitties launched, and then it shut down Akash network completely. So that really made us understand that scalability is a huge factor. It's significantly under-evolved compared to traditional, distributed systems. That's when our journey towards building our own blockchain really began, because we couldn't rely on something like a shared system like Ethereum. So
Yeah.
we ended up discovering this library called Tendermint. Um, you know, Ended up meeting a guy called Jay Kwan, and we were introduced through our social channels. And Tendermint was written in Go, and Akash, you know, the previous version. I mean, in fact, all the versions from the beginning were written in Go
Mhm.
since 2014. And so I've been a huge Go contributor. I've written libraries that were trending as top 10 in on GitHub Go, you know, uh, Go section and whatnot. So we're very pro Go shop because of infrastructure. And just aligned, right? Okay, we can now go use this library called Tendermint, go to build a layer one. It was very unstable. It was very early, but we are used to working with early software like Kubernetes and Docker,
Mhm.
and it became a natural fit for us. So that's how we ended up with Tendermint, and Tendermint eventually became Cosmos. Uh, by they ended up, built the way Tendermint works is there's this core consensus, which is a you know delegated proof of stake, and or Tendermint proof of stake, they call it. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, you have different modules, right? So modules being accounts module, banking module, staking module, all these like different pieces of software like adds different capabilities to Tendermint. We ended up writing a lot of the modules ourselves because there was no Cosmos SDK. We're talking about 2018, right? And then
There was no
Cosmos,
Cosmos SDK in 2018 still. Not.
no, Cosmos SDK didn't exist in
Oh no,
2018.
like, yeah, 2018 was just ICO. Was like, but I thought
It
maybe
was
tech.
Tendermint, right? So Tendermint was the first
Yeah.
sort of
All
like
right.
engine. But the SDK didn't come formally around till 2019, if I
Right.
recall correctly. So if you were using Tendermint, you had to write the modules yourself
Hmm.
or find modules from the wild and use it. So we ended up writing a lot of the modules Overclock Labs ourselves, and Cosmos was developing in parallel. I mean, doing the same similar work, Cosmos SDK at least.
Yeah.
And Cosmos Hub launched, I believe, in 2019, if I
I
remember
think it was
correctly.
2019, but not sure
As
what
the
month.
first sort of like experiment to use the Cosmos SDK. It didn't really do much. I guess it doesn't do
Yeah.
much. um, I mean, it was supposed to be the chain of reference, and it that was a proof point that actually works in production, right? So that made us feel better, and
Mhm.
we were, dealing with a lot of stability issues with Tendermint, and I think IBC launched with in 2019 or 2020,
Uh,
early 2020,
IBC 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
It was under the works, and then we started migrating to Cosmos SDK in 2019 because Tendermint was very,
Mhm.
at least the modules we wrote were written for ourselves. We didn't really write it for everyone else, and it started having its own set of issues. We did a huge like testnet or incentivized testnet. I don't know if the Cosmos Game of Stakes was the first one, but we did the next big one, right? So
Mhm.
in that big testnet, we discovered that stability is an issue, and we started migrating to Cosmos SDK. Remember, we threw away 70,000 lines of code in 20. There's a famous tweet somewhere that talked about how much code we threw away, um, because we were like, well, we rather use a shared code base
Mhm.
that's vetted well, and that other folks have looked into it much deeper than and we have. And it's always good to have more eyes on a piece of code. Shared code base is way better than your own code base, and we you know adopted Cosmos SDK, and that's how we got into
Yeah.
IBC in the first. Yeah.
I remember, like, at some point you were quite a Solana bull. Maybe you're still Solana bull, but you used to tweet a lot about Solana, and like Solana is a faster network, right? So, but Akash, I think because Solana came later, but it would like almost make you think, oh, did Akash plan to move to Solana? But you stayed in Cosmos. So were there benefits to that? Were you considering moving to Solana, or you wanted to stay its own Cosmos network? Yeah.
So for some context, right? I'm good friends with Anatoly, the founder
Mhm.
of Solana. I met Anatoly in 2018 when they pitched me Loom. That was a previous name of Solana.
Mhm.
And my regret is not taking advisory tokens when they asked me to be their advisor. Anyway, big mistakes we make. Um, they Akash's first Solana's partner. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, didn't know. Yeah.
When they
Uh,
launched in 2019,
by
2020.
that you mean Akash was the as partner you invested, had the you shared the tokens with exchanged the tokens with Solana, some sort of like this partnership?
I personally invested in their very, very early round, so
Mhm.
it worked out well. But the Solana was very promising. So before
Mhm.
years back, right? So before Akash, I founded a company called Angel Hack. Angel Hack is the largest hackathon-based accelerator in the world. We help launch developer companies. Several companies launched at Angel Hack. One of the most popular ones are Firebase. So Firebase got acquired by Google, became Google Cloud Database. A lot of us use Firebase, right? you know, as much as I'm a big fan of Firebase and I'm very close with the team and whatnot, I never would use Firebase personally. Why? Because when they pitched it to me in 2011, this was Firebase website didn't exist.
Mhm.
It was a different company back then, and they pivoted to Firebase, and it was a real-time database. It's very simple database, right? So for me as an engineer, I was used to Postgres and very advanced database systems when you have this like super simple real-time synchronization database. It was very not very useful to me, even though I really like the tech.
Mhm.
And I would never pay money to use a database. I mean, this is an era of open source software, right? There are a lot of things about scalability and shared sort of like security, and there's a lot of restrictions for me as an engineer that's used to building on open source systems and having the sovereignty. So I would never use I was very biased against using shared systems. But then my opinion changed over time, and I saw Firebase really demonstrate that it can scale. Right now, 10 years later, we're looking at Google scaling Firebase, but it wasn't very obvious then. Now it's very obvious looking back that hey, can you have a world where you can exist both sovereign systems versus shared systems?
Hmm.
My opinion changed quite a lot over 10 years, seeing Firebase being able to really pull that off. So, in similar vein, when I look at Solana, Solana is young and it has issues like any good software that I'm used to having issues. Would I use Solana the way it is right now? Probably not. It's too
Hmm.
early and it's too risky for something like Akash to go adopt Solana, right?
Hmm.
But would Solana be great in 10 years, maybe or 5 years time horizon? I think it will be, right?
Hmm.
So I'm still very long on shared technologies. If I had to put like shared stack versus sovereign stack, right? It's a different
Hmm.
architectural pattern. I'll get into trade-offs in a bit here. Why I would consider Solana, why I would not consider Solana. But
Hmm.
just from like a technology maturity standpoint, Cosmos has the best sovereign stack. This hands down. There's nothing that comes close. But I mean, parachains and the Polkadot stuff is very early, right? Very still not very mature. And from a design space standpoint, Polkadot is very academic. Cosmos is very industry. That's how I look at it. I mean, coming from someone that used Kubernetes, used or been very pro Kubernetes and pro Docker and pro early stage technologies that eventually made it, right? So in that same vein, I see quite a lot of parallels between Cosmos and other early stack I've used, and it's incredible. I mean, it's proof point Akash works. Most of Cosmos chains work. Terra experience battle, during the Terra meltdown. So thing works. So from a shared state chain, only thing that comes close to functionality is probably Ethereum and probably Solana now, right?
Hmm.
Ethereum, the trade-off is, well, you get security, but the trade-off is, well, exploits. You get chain security, but you incur enormous amounts of exploits because Solidity and EVM are just poorly designed.
Well, and I assume the speed and block space as well, right? Uh,
Yeah, then you have performance, like
yeah. But you
just
could scale that with L2, I guess, right? Like,
yeah, you could do whatever, but yes, why do you need an L2? And then eventually you'll end up, you know, compromising security of the L2. So it really comes down to like, well, if it's not a foundational chain, there's no point of an
yeah,
L2, right? At least like it's just using L2s are like using a caching layer in the middle. Like it's
yeah.
like, it's not a direct solution. It is some solution, right? So I don't think I'm not a fan of L2s, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. Um, well, so what's the other solution is Solana, right? Well, is it as secure as Ethereum? Not yet, but given a chance for next 5-10 years, will get better than Ethereum. Absolutely.
Hmm.
So if I had to pick a shade chain, with a trade off of sovereignty, right? So will Akash ever get to a point where we need to give out we need to trade off sovereignty over performance, or really, over budget optimization, Rick? Because if Akash is successful, right, or when Akash is successful and it continues to do so, we'll have our own token, because the token adds security and there's an associated cost with the security, which is you end up paying validators, right? Or your users end up paying validators in the native token. That gives the native token a value. But if Akash is not successful in, let's say, 5 years, right? If there's no traffic, we haven't met any thresholds that we need to meet in order to consider to be successful, we'll move to Solana,
Yeah. I
because
would.
it's better to live on a dead chain. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
a
I understand. Like so far, you've been doing very well, and like Akash was very successful, like with security as well. There was, I believe, 90% of AKT tokens staked early on, which was the highest numbers that Cosmos ever had. Like many people don't remember, but Akash was very high staked ratio. Um, Might I know how much money Akash raised? When I remember I was researching that you didn't raise that much in the early stages, and there was no information of other ones. And I had concerns that like you might run out of money, but it didn't seem that was the case. Was there any other rounds or like any other means of funding for the Akash?
No, overall, we raised $1.7 million in
Yeah.
seed round in
Mhm,
2016. I mean, for Overclock Labs, the company behind Akash that operates Akash, development of Akash, right? Doesn't operate Akash
mhm,
network. And then we were able to do a token pre-sale before we went
mhm.
live. I think that was total about 2 million plus something. So in total, we did like 3 point some odd
And
million, including tokens and equity. But when we were able to, do some strategic financing after launch, um, you know, for privacy, I don't want to
mhm,
disclose who they are, but if you can look at our validator chain, you get an idea who they are, right?
mhm.
So we're able to do some strategic financing during the bull turn, and we knew that playing the long game is very important than trying to raise a lot of money and trying to satisfy you know growth, because
Yeah,
once you raise money you're on the hook for growth, right? If you do a traditional venture round. And we were very clear on expectations, saying that, look, Akash is not going to go and do all the fake things people do to get quote unquote growth, or at least to mimic growth. A lot of fake growth is like partnerships and all that crap,
mhm,
right? And we were very clear, look, the Web3 infrastructure is not at a point where we can put a Google ad and expect user to use it. Trust me. I mean,
yeah.
users don't come use Web3 using a Google ad.
So
Unless we get to that point, I'm not going to set the expectation that we're going to grow like a venture backed company,
yeah,
because crypto is not, with open source, it's not about that speed that you get, it's about how far you get. But once you get to a certain threshold in terms of distance traveled, you unlock speed.
yeah,
And that requires a combination of network effects and incredible adoption mechanism. Like,
yeah,
users should be able to come to Akash, discover it themselves, use it themselves, right? Like, that's still a challenge. Why? Because there is just a lack of engagement infrastructure in crypto.
yeah,
Like, I can get into that, like why it's challenging to use Akash right now, but I mean, we have to
yeah.
be honest.
I,
And
I I wouldn't know because I'm not technical. By the way, like it's cool. Kava is on the top validator because I actually do remember when I was like researching the Cosmos chains, like Kava and Akash was the early one, so there was not that much. Like I know like many were centralized in 2020 when you were like Cosmos chains and stuff. Those Kava and Akash, right, were the first one that were very early. I'm not
yeah,
sure if like yeah like like there was always Kava and Akash were both together. I want to talk a little bit about the GPUs because when everyone fixates on the AI, right? Like when the AI craze started, everyone was focusing on Chat GPT, but like almost early on everyone ignored whole infrastructure that is required for the AI, right? And then you suddenly had Nvidia rise because you might help me with that because for AI systems you require a lot of GPU power, correct? And
correct.
Nvidia makes those most powerful GPUs.
Yeah. So it's funny. So you need a lot of GPUs. It's funny that Akash seems like GPUs overnight, but if you look at our white paper, the first section that talks about motivation, we talk about Akash primarily built for machine learning. This is published in 2017, 2018, a revision. Um, why? Because so GPUs are these special chips in our machines that are used to deliver graphics. They're called processing units. Turns out they're also exceptional at performing highly complex mathematical calculations, particularly matrix multiplications for vectors.
Hmm.
So these types of chips are called accelerants. What that means is they do certain operations significantly better than your CPU, which is the primary processing unit of a computer, in order of 1000x magnitude, right? So that's why GPUs are very, very important for machine learning. And machine learning tends to do a lot of matrix multiplications for vectors. So, uh, so NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel are three companies that make GPUs. Really, from a overall market share perspective, and NVIDIA happens to make the best chips with an incredible combination between hardware and software. That's their magic sauce. NVIDIA has a software suite called CUDA. CUDA is the best suite to do machine learning or big data intensive applications using for GPUs. AMD doesn't come close, and Intel is just lost, right? So that's
So
why they have
you think Intel will not catch up with them? It's
got to be very
like I'm
careful on what
asking
I say
because I'm
publicly
trying.
about companies. But so far, what it looks like is Intel needs a uh, saving. I mean, Intel's gotten really good stuff. I mean, they have some really advanced research, but there seems to be a gap in productizing that research
Yeah,
into something that I can buy in a on Amazon.com. So Uh, I mean, Intel is a big company. I mean, it's just a legendary Silicon Valley company. I mean, do they have it in them? They do. I mean, I don't doubt they don't. But it's going to take a founder like Jensen, you know, or someone with that grit to take Intel from what they really have and really productize it.
yeah.
So
But they may make they make chips too, like which Nvidia uses. So right, is it correct that
they
Nvidia?
invented the semiconductors. I
Yeah.
mean,
So like, are they still gonna benefit from that? Right? If Nvidia, if they have most advanced semiconductors, right? Like they will be
if
okay.
they're in
Or
a position to do that, they're probably not, right? So I don't, it's, I don't think it's a technology problem with Intel. Let's put it that way.
right, yeah, like they seems to struggle with growth for so yeah. Like I'm not from, like, I never even visited Silicon Valley, so I know nothing. So that's why I'm trying to ask you and learn about the things and what's happening, right?
Intel hasn't innovated rapidly enough to catch the AI wave, and they're
Mhm.
trying now, right? So they're
Um,
working on upping the AI game. They haven't been focused on developing good software. Uh, they make great high performance hardware, but you need that software aspect of it to make
mhm.
hardware usable, right? So NVIDIA, on the other hand, were focusing on AI for about 10 years using their CUDA. It was visionary on Jensen and team to really make that bet. So NVIDIA has a 10-year head start compared to Intel and AMD. AMD comes probably close, right? So AMD is notoriously bad for the drivers. If you develop an AMD, you have reliability issues, you have all sorts of issues that you don't want to deal with as a developer. So NVIDIA is like the Apple, essentially, right? When you're building
Mhm.
software, you're trying to build for Apple iPhone because it's got the most beautiful SDK as a developer that you enjoy working on. And it's
Yeah,
just faster sometimes, right? And then once you kind of figure out what you're doing, then you think about other chips, right?
yeah.
Optimizations come later. So NVIDIA has about 80% market share, in which H100s are the most advanced like chips NVIDIA makes. H100s, A100s, A10s, A6000s. H1
They're very expensive, right?
very like H100s are the most has the highest demand. In fact, they're so hard to get. It takes about 2 years if you order now from
Yeah,
NVIDIA. It's harder than a Rolex. If you know what I
yeah.
mean.
So like I'm saying this is people laughed at me because I made the video about Akash the other day, and I was talking about Martin Shkreli, buying the demand from the market, and that you cannot get them, and people were laughing that I was checking eBay, right, and showing the video that there is in like a high demand, like,
Not
but how you
all,
check? So
yeah, people assume GPUs means just one thing. There are different types of GPUs. In
Mhm,
that, you have high density GPUs, low density GPUs, retail GPUs, right? You are looking for high density GPUs that have the highest performance for machine learning. That's really where the demand is, not gaming GPUs.
mhm.
Gaming,
I want
right? Like,
what is, yeah, go on, sorry.
like you go to eBay and get me an H100, I will grow my hair.
Yeah, so I was like, what is the position of Akash, right? Like, if we talk about um, the AI and demand for GPUs, because you cannot get them, right? But there are large companies that might rent them, right, in the cloud, like for Akash users, right? So essentially, for those who will be looking for those very powerful GPUs, will the Akash be the easiest place to find that?
So let me give you the lay of the land before we get into
Mhm,
like why, where the demand is stuck, where the supply is stuck, and all that, right? So um, right now, if you're an AI company that want to get these chips, obviously your choices are two, right? You can go buy them or you can go lease them, right? Like when
mhm,
you want a house, you can either buy it or lease it if you can buy it. Buying obviously is very expensive. H100 costs about, I mean, $40,000, right, per chip. And you can't just get one; you need to get eight minimum. So it'll cost you $300,000 just to get one server. So that's
mhm,
fairly expensive for most people, right? Even if you're a startup company that raised $20 million, that's still,
mhm,
still quite a lot of money just for one server, and you need to get like a few of these, right? Um, and so your other option is to go lease them. So as your traditional companies, where do you go to lease compute? Amazon, right? You're what you're used to. Now, if you go to Amazon, guess what? They don't have them. Then you go to Google. Guess what? Google doesn't have them. Then you go to Azure. Guess what? Azure doesn't have them. Why? Because there are more chips that people need than they can make. And then, well, you go to NVIDIA and be like, what the fuck? And they're like, no, wait 2 years. And you're like, well, are there anyone else that can get these chips? Turns out NVIDIA deprioritized the big cloud when it comes to giving them chips because NVIDIA considers these big cloud companies as
Greg,
competitors.
I had a lag. Deprioritize. I think you probably said large companies, correct? And
Right. So NVIDIA deprioritized hyperscalers, meaning
mhm.
Amazon, Google's, and Microsoft's, over um, smaller providers like CoreWeave and Data Crunch and Lambda Labs. What that
Why would
means?
they do that? Yeah.
Why? Because at some point, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft competed with NVIDIA when it comes to making chips for AI. Because Google has TPUs, Amazon has similar products. If you go to Amazon GPU chips, you'll see quite a lot of history back in the day. We're talking about 2, 3 years ago. They made a lot of noise against NVIDIA.
Mm-hmm.
Now, NVIDIA doesn't want to be friends with people that compete with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sounds, but, and also like NVIDIA wants to know their customers. They don't want to give to a middleman. Like, think
Mm-hmm.
about it, right? If you're a car company, make the hottest car. Say you're Tesla. Everybody wants Tesla Cybertruck, right? Would you go sell your Cybertrucks to Hertz, or would you go sell your cars to people that want them? You,
Obviously, people that want, but like I remember the story that Hertz order a lot, but Tesla kind of distanced themselves from that. Like, I think it was
why?
they
Because you
didn't,
don't want. Yeah, you don't
probably
want
didn't think
centralized.
it's great marketing. Like, it's like, no, it wasn't our move. It's they bought it by themselves, right?
Well, it's bad for business because you don't know your user. It's
Yeah.
bad because you're selling to someone that has a lot of buying power, so they're going to negotiate the hell out of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's bad because you don't want to rely on someone else to get to your users. Right? I mean, you want to get to your users directly.
Mm-hmm.
So they optimize to go to smaller providers like CoreWeave. They invested heavily in CoreWeave recently. I mean, CoreWeave raised at $8 billion valuation recently, right?
Mhm.
Like they own a part of CoreWeave, and Nvidia actually also tried to compete with the big cloud. They tried to build their own cloud, but failed because they
And I
couldn't.
guess you compete with CoreWeave. Like, I mean,
I'll get there in a second.
yeah.
So now, if you're a startup company trying to get compute, you go to CoreWeave. Guess what? You can't just get CoreWeave. You can't just be like, hey, give me some H100s on demand. You need to wait. Well, you need to first of all get into a year-long contract, give them money for the whole year, and wait 3 to 6 months to get the chips. Now, so you have no way, trust me, you have no way to get on-demand chips for H100s right now from the market. And if you do, they come and go very quickly,
Mhm.
right? They may show up like once in a while at Lambda or Latitude and whatnot, but they disappear in a matter of hours. So there's a real need to get on-demand chip. Guess what? If you're a startup company having these long contracts with core reefs of the world, and you're in an industry that's moving so fast because AI changes every 2 weeks, there's a new model that comes out every month, really. If you're a startup company, the likeliness of you knowing what you need 3 months from now or a year from now is very, very low because you're iterating so quickly.
Mhm.
So now imagine you paid for something for the whole year, which you may or may not know if you have use for it. What do? You put them on Akash as a secondary market because that's what you do with the unused. Say you have an apartment, you thought you're going to use it, but you're not going to use it. Put that on Airbnb. Makes sense. So now, if you're a startup company, if you want on-demand chips, where do you come? Akash, because Akash is the only place for secondary markets to essentially unused GPU market, right? That's what the whole thesis is all about. So Akash is in a very unique position to take advantage of this supply crunch.
Mhm.
And another big supplier for Akash is, there's a company called, I mean, there are a lot of miners, right? Like Foundry that came out, which is
Yeah,
a,
I saw the news that Foundry was actually leasing them on Akash. Yeah.
they're a huge supplier actually to Akash. They have a lot of H100, A100s they bought for doing AI and some of the crypto stuff. And you have a lot of companies that bought A100s, which are the previous generation of
Mhm.
chips, and now they want H100s because they're doing, advanced research, have a fleet of A100s that they're not using. Where do we need them? Right? Where do we put them? Akash. So Akash became this like market where people would come to list their compute that they're not using, but they still need access to them at
Mhm.
some point. So that's why, well, the two things that's happening here from a macro standpoint, right? Like Nvidia is by not distributing their chips to the big clouds, fragmented the market because now customers are used to using AWS by default, right? You're an AI dev, you don't,
Mhm.
you just go to AWS because everybody goes to AWS. Now you don't have that avenue anymore. In order to get these chips, you got to really go hunt them. Trust me, it's very hard. Even Elon Musk said it's harder. Like he said, he bought about 10,000 H100s, right? And he said these chips are way harder to get than drugs, even though that's a low bar in San Francisco. But in the spirit of the conversation, he said like these are very, very hard to get.
Yeah,
Sam
I saw
Altman from
some videos.
OpenAI.
It's like a drug dealing, really really hard to get there.
It's
It's like
really hard.
it's funny because you could get literally a bag of cash and go deal and deal like with the bags of coke
Yeah,
to get the GPU,
I
right?
mean those are even easier. I would think.
Yeah.
Getting drugs is way
Oh,
easier. than
100
getting a GPU.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
But Sam Altman, who's the founder of OpenAI, he said that they're slowing down Chat GPT because they cannot get H100s.
Yeah.
So
Um,
that's the nature of the system, right? So it's if people that came like, oh, GPUs I can go get on Amazon, like what GPUs are you buying? Not all GPUs are equal. And there are other networks in crypto I don't want to name, but they'll be like, oh, we have like thousands and thousands of GPUs, but guess what? Each
I-
H100 is equivalent to like 200 and
yeah.
something odd, 3090s or 4090s.
I
It's
might know which
exponential.
network you mentioned, but
Not worth talking about. Like, there's a lot of this, like, people that think GPUs are just like GPUs, but no, not every GPU is equal. It's just
You
like
want the H100 or A100.
A100s.
That's the real stuff on this. That's hard
Yeah,
to
in that they're
come by
like,
on
yeah,
the street.
A180s. You see me tweet quite a lot about A100s and H100s because I don't really tweet about 4090s or 3090s. That's not nearly as powerful as these like really powerful chips. And the chips that I talk about are like cost about $40,000 to
Yeah,
$15,000 range, right?
yeah.
And very hard to get. So that's the lay of the land, and that's why Akash is in a very unique position. We've been working on it for a very long time. I mean, it's just ChatGPT fell on our lap, and a lot of the other stuff in terms of demand just started flowing. And Akash, the moment we launched GPUs 3 weeks ago, all the A100s are sold out. You know,
Is it like I want I'm gonna do step back, okay? Let's to compress it into a less clever person understanding, like myself, right? So let's imagine I'm clever guy and I'm able to build some AI, some simple AI, right? Like that, but I want it to be powerful. In order to do that, when I build AI, I need this powerful GPUs, which I can go hunt on the streets, which I will not find. So if I do have opportunity, you said it's all rented out, but I also don't have to do it, and I can seek opportunity on Akash and rent it on Akash, right? It will be exactly it's you can deliver the same performance, right? Like it's all the same,
oh, it's better than what you'd get on the cloud
right?
performance wise.
And is the what's the cost wise? Is it is this always coming slightly cheaper on Akash? I understand it's like it's no one really care about the price probably now when the demand is so high, everyone just wants to pay everything, right? But still,
Right. So Akash is an open market, right? Price is set by the provider. So demand supply. So right now we're seeing some chips overpriced on Akash than what
yeah.
they
By the
what you
way,
normally. It
Greg,
really, yeah,
there was question you said where it comes from
I
before
did.
that there was this company, so like yeah,
I did. I quoted like several quotes, like
yeah,
either from people that have H100s that are not using them, or from people that are renting these H100s that really have no way to use them, and now they want to sort of like you know rent them out in Akash subleasing, right? Um, our demand really is more for A100s more than H100s.
mhm,
Interestingly, why? Because H100s are so expensive and so prohibitive, people are not building for them. So most
right,
AI devs are actually building for A100s, which is very interesting. Um, so the cost is it varies. So yesterday I saw an A180 gig for 13 cents an hour. It blew my mind. I was like, I don't know how someone's getting an A100, but they're selling for that low rate. And I actually went and like did a job on that. It worked great. Another one I saw for like 32 cents. By the way, market standard A100 is $1 per hour.
hmm,
So just so you know,
yeah,
uh, H100s, I saw them for much higher price in Akash than what you would otherwise pay in the market. But now we're understanding the demand supply profile a little bit. So now Akash is pre-incentives, right? From in terms of tokens,
yeah,
we only incentivize security, and we have very low APR because of that. And we're waiting for GPUs to understand how the demand supply works to understand what we need to incentivize for.
so
Uh, so looks like we don't have to incentivize for people to put their chips because chips are going very fast, at least the advanced ones. We need to incentivize for excess supply because we are sold out pretty much all the advanced chips, right? Especially, I mean, the chips that come for like low rate is completely sold out. Chips that come for a higher rate is a less utilized, obviously for a higher price. But as I'm onboarding at least 1 to 2 Web2 devs on a daily basis when I'm at my desk. When I'm not traveling, I'm not conferencing. If I'm back at my desk, I'm onboarding several users, right? They are blown away when they see an A100. Literally, when they see my tweets, they just it's just
yeah.
unheard of, right? So so we're trying to carefully match right now. So we're like, people that we know in terms of providers, we're telling them, look, there is a customer that's about to come. if you want to put your A100 here, and then they'll put the A100, it'll be gone within a matter of
Hmm.
minutes, you know. So we're trying to like play the matchmaking for a little bit till we get enough sort of like frequency in terms of like supply demand. uh, so it's very like it's still in the super early stages to be able to like definitely say this
Yeah.
is going to be our biggest supplier or in the future or whatnot.
Yeah.
So
May I know how Akash make the money? Because I'm not sure if you have some markup right now, or you don't make any money on markup. And as it's decentralized network, does this revenues occur to the company or to the network? I wonder what's the plan here.
also decentralized network, that means everybody makes money, right? So
So
Akash
so
network
yeah.
Akash network has a take model. What that means is a portion of the fees from hosting gets extracted and paid to what it needs to be paid to for maintaining the network. And a big cost for maintaining the network is security. That
Yeah.
means there's an incentive for stakers, obviously, to earn AKT tokens, right? And then AKT tokens come from network transactions, essentially. So the more network is used for GPUs, the more revenue there is, and the revenue is aligned with the usage. If there's no usage, there's no revenue, right? So that's simple.
And
Um, yeah.
I'm trying to think. So hopefully one day, when there is no issuance, all the token will be coming from the transactions and the usage of GPUs here. Um, wouldn't it this like wonder like if this model doesn't cause the market shock, as there would be not enough tokens in circulation to because if you um is the renting happening in the token? Must be in the token, right? So that's what
Well,
I'm saying, that there could be like kind of squeeze of that, but it's converted to US dollars, I guess. So
yes and no. So let me explain how the value exchange
yeah.
happens. Right? So Akash is, well, AKT is the primary token for Akash. Obviously, all value exchange happens on AKT. But Akash, AKT being very volatile is not good for long running workloads because
Mhm.
the price could change, you know, from what you both agreed from a provider and payer. And bills are in US dollars, right? Somebody needs to pay electricity and all that bills. So instead of like having AKT as the only value exchange, we enable any IBC token to be used as value exchange. That means stable currencies right now.
Mhm.
But using a stable currency undermines AKT, which undermines security. That means
Yeah.
it's bad for Akash security if you use non-AKT tokens for exchange. So that's why there's a 20% extraction fee, like literally a usage fee for using non-AKT tokens,
Mhm.
right? And that's fair because now you're like, well, you can use stable currency and that doesn't give you a supply shock and all the stuff that you're talking about. And it's actually good for user experience. Every customer that uses Akash wants to pay in US dollars, right? That makes sense.
Mhm.
So giving you the option to pay, but charging you a tax for using Akash,
Mhm.
and that tax goes back to Akash token holders in some form or the other, right? So I think we're like very open about like, look, user experience is very, very important. Without that, you can't
Mhm.
grow. And we're not going to force down people's throats on a currency that they don't seem ideal. I mean, Akash AKT as a currency has beautiful properties, right? Like streaming, it has escrows and all the good stuff, but you can't force people to use a currency that they don't know anything about. Like a lot of times, people like non Web3 devs end up using Akash, and they come to a website, they'll be like, "What is AKT?" I'm like, "Wow, you know,
And then
start
you have
like."
to go from the start and
And
explain.
then, like, where do I get some AKT? Like, well, go to Kraken and give your mother's passport because US exchange. A lot of our users are US folks, right? They're like, what is this Kraken? Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go. Like, and most of them don't know what Kepler is.
Did
And
Coinbase
like,
call you?
I mean, I'm not going to disclose any exchange
They must be
listing
hopping
there,
on that
right? Like,
AI
so,
train.
you know, I mean, a lot of people are excited about AI, right? So, um, but it is a big challenge even with Coinbase. I mean, with like you can get the best exchange in the world, you still the effort it takes for someone to not know anything about AKT, they're there, like they're excited. They saw like 23 cents, like A100. I want to go grab him. Yesterday we had one guy, it was so funny. I wish I can share the Slack conversation with him. He just came, he's like super excited. He saw my tweet, like, how can I get in? They went to like Akash Network, click on like get started, and went and like designed all his like STL file, figured out all the hard stuff, and then he clicked create certificate. It basically told him to install like Kepler. He's like, what the fuck is Kepler? Like, okay. He went and installed Kepler. And remember, this guy's a no coiner. He never used crypto
Yeah,
before. He's like a very popular AI dev. And and he installed Kepler, went through it, and it's like, well, you need AKT. Like, what is AKT? Like, okay, he just needed to create a certificate and he needed AKT for paying for gas fees. So he went and like he was like he couldn't figure out. I mean, he went and like Google and like did all that work. I felt so bad for him. It took about half an hour from the time that he was like really excited to use Akash. And then I guess he finally succeeded, and it took like a long time to adopt to convert one user. Like,
yeah,
and this guy came to Akash because he knew about Akash through my tweets. But imagine someone just landing on Akash website without knowing anything about my tweets or the context behind the Akash network.
yeah.
For them to use Akash, it is a big ask. Like it is. It
You,
is.
you are literally onboarding users to Cosmos. Like they
I am.
should they
Yeah,
should
you
pay you for
like
this. I
normal
want
people.
I want
Like
to give you like little bit of experience, like because I do some works for Stargaze. I work for Stargaze. So I try to onboard the artists. None of them used crypto, so I
mhm.
would go for like 1 hour calls for 30 minutes explaining them concept of crypto, and that you need kind of the wallet where you store the tokens. And it's very exhausting because it's literally like could take 1 hour to get one person to be actually able to do transaction, like not even go in Feder, right? And
Yeah.
it's so it's what's the solution to that?
I wish I knew. I mean, so well, there are two ways to do it, right? So there are two ways. One way is like my vision is truly decentralization through and through. Like I want to be able to have self custody all the way to the
Hmm.
chip that I control. That's why we are here. That's why we're building
Hmm.
decentralized systems. Sovereignty is an agency is critical. And if you think about building this massive system as a long journey of climbing a mountain, and you're going to have a lot of rocks you need to
Hmm.
hang on to climb the mountain. Question is, what rock do we hang on to? Is it a soft rock? Is it a hard rock? Or do we need to dig in more to hang on to different rocks? So in that vein, I say do anything and everything possible to get the user to use the system, like literally. Like if there's a lack of engagement infrastructure, I'm talking about like emails, I'm talking about credit cards, I'm talking about just traditional like infrastructure that you are used to in the web 2 world. If there's a lack of that, let's go build it. Let's go build, or let's go just do a web 2 route, right? Like why not? You know, so Akash ML, for example, is a machine learning software built on top of Akash that is hyper focused on AI devs, and that has credit cards. I mean, we're like, well, users want to pay 99% of people want to pay using credit cards. Right? Let's give it to them. Well, you put a credit card, it's not decentralized, right? Like,
Hmm.
so, but is it necessary step in order for us to get to the larger goal? Yes, I think it is. It is warranted for. We can build a credit card based system in a matter of weeks. It's not hard, right? Stripe login, boom. So it's not about sitting in like pondering on what we need to do, which we of course we need to do, but I think it's time to jump into action and really, really internalize the opportunity that we have right now. Akash has something AWS does not right now. That's
Hmm.
the situation. Like, how do we sell Akash to more people? We got to go aggressively in enabling a behavior that these people that are using are used to.
I want to ask
So
something because I was walking today and thinking. By the way, you in San Francisco, yeah?
I used to be.
Oh, okay. Where you?
I moved. I'm a refugee now. I moved to Texas, really from
Oh,
to Austin, Texas.
oh, okay. Because I was
Nobody knows
thinking,
about this, by the way. I'm just disclosing on your show.
uh, I was thinking it's quite early in San Francisco. I was like, oh, such an early bird. And
I do wake up early, but I do wake up at 5:30 here in Texas.
ooh,
But I do, man, I love San Francisco, everything about it, but it's just gotten to a point where it's very unsafe right now to
yeah,
be in San Francisco. Will I go back to San Francisco? I don't know. I don't think so. But we're having want to start a family here, having kids and whatnot. So, it's nice here. It's more quieter. It's more,
congratulations for having family. Not sure how old are the kids, but like I never been to San Francisco, but like always think sometimes like people, I think people underestimate US, not specifically San Francisco, because like it's in relation to AI, because they say, oh, it's so dangerous, so much shithole, and they speak of other locations. But when it comes to technology, when it comes to um, GPUs, when it comes to AI, US is actually far ahead.
oh,
Uh,
San Francisco. Yeah, 100%. Like,
it's
if you go to San Francisco right now, if you're an AI early stage, you have to be in San Francisco. I don't think there's other option.
yeah,
I've lived there for 15 years, so I have enough network that I don't have to be physically there. I do go visit quite a lot, but our average hackathon will have about 500 people, 95% high-end developers,
yeah,
and these happen every week, right? So if you're like trying to break in, if you're trying to even raise money or like even start a company in AI, I think being in San Francisco
yeah,
is the most ROI you can do for your time right
yeah.
now.
The-
Um,
yeah, don't
yeah,
want to like change this, because I would like, especially if you're in crypto, I keep seeing the posts on Twitter all the time. US is falling, Dubai new place. I'm like, what? Shut shut up. Like, all technology is in US. Like, do whatever you want about this, but uh that's how economies and that's how money is made,
I
regardless
agree.
of what
I
happens.
agree. I mean, there's so much talent here, and especially Silicon Valley's got the highest density of talent,
Yeah,
hands down. No matter how bad it is, some people still flock there. It's just, I mean,
yeah,
like I can't imagine building a company out of Silicon Valley,
yeah.
especially something with AI
But
or.
Texas has a lot of talent. Overall, US, the East Coast, I think, has a lot of talent. But what I wanted to ask, so you operate on the blockchain, everyone can access this, right? GPUs and a lot of US technology in regards to that, uh, I don't think is accessible in certain location like China. US is protective of that, correct? So I was thinking, if someone has access to Kepler in China, well, the blockchain is illegal, but they can actually like overcome this. And if that would be legal, suddenly everyone in China technically could have access to H100s via Akash, correct? And
Good
could this
question.
bring the problems for Akash?
Good question. Akash is a protocol anyone can use, just like web is a protocol anyone can use. That means whoever uses Akash need to comply with the local laws, right? Like if
Mhm,
you're using Akash in the US, you have to comply with US laws. Similarly to Europe.
mhm.
And if US deems right now there's an executive order from Biden that says you cannot sell H100s to China. It's a
Yeah.
national protective asset. If you determine the buyer is a Chinese buyer, you should not sell to them because Akash also gives you complete sovereignty as to who you want to sell and who you don't want to. Now, do you know how the user is a Chinese buyer? Well, there are ways you can, right? First of all, you can filter out for IP addresses. You can filter out for several factors that, from your providers, you can essentially do. Like, um, if the actor is going beyond what they're supposed to hiding the identity, that's their prerogative, right? So Akash gives you a lot of control, a lot more control than other decentralized networks to be compliant,
Mhm.
right? And there's others dangerous stuff that you don't want in your computers, like there are scanners, there are all kinds of cool things. Now, is Akash core development team going to make it easier for you to comply? I think we have to, right? Like, so you can easily see a world. I mean, there's a whole like discussion group called content moderation on GitHub. You can see the exact status of what's happening. The situation right now is Akash is a force of good, but there are forces of evil that will fight against force of good, right? There are evil people, like literally, that forget Chinese. I mean, there are way more evil people. I'm not saying Chinese are evil. I'm just saying like the Chinese military is considered to be an enemy of some degree of
Mhm.
US you know government, right? Um, but there North Koreans. There are lots of really bad people out there, and we have to do everything we can to protect your you know to protect your country from like someone
Yeah.
using it for bad purposes. So there's real issues. So we have to work on like a, a, an easier mechanism for moderating who you serve, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. And there are tools being developed. There are technologies we really like, and this active area of research that's happening as well. But yes, it is a real problem. It is a
Mhm.
real problem for compliance.
Um, yeah, not even like there is whole bunch of dark side of the internet, and I imagine like there would be probably people trying to build even beyond that dark side of the internet. There might be even like people trying to build harmful systems, right? Like that, which is also very evil thing. Um, I wonder what's what do you see like for the next few years, like so someone asking about Cosmos, but I want to extend that, like what you see for the next few years for the Akash. What will be niche for the Akash? Will it be GPUs? Will it be something different? Obviously everything changes, but from like your own biased perspective. And also like when it comes to the blockchain, it seems that traffic is pretty low. It seems that the certain hopes um, of what, like as you said, you pointed the problems to the user experience as well, like and stuff. So there are certain difficulties. So how you see the next years ahead?
So for the next few years, Prakash, is going to be adoption and distribution. Distribution in the sense like getting Akash in front of as many as people as possible. Our conversion rate from people that we talk to is about 98%. Like literally, like people that we know have need for GPUs, we show them what's possible. 98% of the people actually end up using Akash. I never saw such a high conversion rate because there's real need for it, right? The right the right type of people I'm talking about. Um, so we have to do everything we can to get the distribution, the multiple channels we're optimizing for, and that's going to be the full goal for the next few years, right? And we also get distribution in terms of like enabling new capabilities that don't exist, right? Because a lot of times the restriction for not using Akash is like, oh, we need this X feature that's on Amazon that's not on Akash. So next big milestone for Akash is called cloud parity. That means
Mhm.
we can get to a point where we can do
Yes.
everything and anything possible that's on the cloud today, right? Let me adjust my light a little bit. Oh, direct sunlight in the morning
Oh,
hits the face.
beautiful.
Um, so Um, and for Web3 itself, like this is the time now we got to prove that real people can use Web3. I don't think, you know, we have too much time to prove that any longer. Um, Infrastructure investments I like to see in user engagement infrastructure, and there's not too much happening in that space at this point. Like we just give, for some reason, we deprioritize wallets. We don't prioritize how you contact a user. Like, how do you know when something goes wrong on a blockchain?
Yeah.
Like, there are no emails. How does indemnity look like? What does um, safety look like? I mean, North Koreans are using Akash. I mean, like, sorry,
Whoa, whoa, Greg. You have like 2 hours
Web3.
left to pack your family and leave the United States.
Web, I mean, there's a real problem. There's a lot of North Korean activity in Web3. Like we
Yeah,
see
of course.
Lazarus Group abusing Web3, and that is not going to be great when you go to Capitol Hill and trying to make policy on how to use on
Mhm.
how to protect Web3, right? We have to get to the bottom of these exploiters and attackers. Um, blockchain security is not the attack vector, it is the user security that's the
Hmm.
attack vector. So the next few years, I want to see heavy investments and growth in this segment. And we have to be honest to ourselves, is Ethereum going to be the future? Because it's not. It is very insecure, EVM. And EVM insecurity is the root of all the exploits that we see today. Um, Cosmos is significantly better in terms of security because, well, not every chain has smart contracts enabled. And introducing the smart contracts introduce a new attack vector, right? So we had to really think about, I think the app chain model has a good isolation mechanism in terms of like, hey, Akash doesn't have exploits because Akash doesn't have smart contracts, right? If we enable permissionless smart contracts, the chances of us having exploits are going to be higher. Like, does every chain need smart contracts? No, they don't, right? Like, so we got to really think about, that's why I'm bullish on DYDX, because DYDX hadn't had exploit, thankfully, and they will not have exploit if they come to Cosmos.
Hmm.
So I think like more app chains in the wild. Akash is a very clear example as to our users are not Web3 users. They are, I mean, we have a few Web3 users, but most of them at least are non-Web3, right? And I think that's what we need to see more non-crypto use cases for crypto layer
Hmm.
infrastructure, right? And if we don't figure that out, I think we'll not make it. To be honest with you, like I
It
don't.
doesn't mean the end. It means just we reverse to Web 2 models, right? It's like,
Well, Web two model is the answer. I mean, ideally, I want an, my device to support the authentication through and
mhm,
through. Like when I open my phone, I should be authenticated. Like I'm already authenticated who I am. Why
mhm,
don't extend that authentication to the platform that I'm using?
mhm,
Right? Like so, things of that nature. Um, And what convinces Apple to enable that capability? Well, less North Koreans on the platform, I suppose. Like
yeah.
so there are a lot of like these seemingly silly issues. We brush them off in blockchain. It's not silly when it comes to traditional adoption, right? And you can go to like Chase Bank yesterday basically said they're going to ban crypto transaction. Fuck Chase, but there's some truth to it. Like why there is a lot of exploits. There are a lot of people
Yeah.
losing money and nobody wants to enable nobody wants to no platform will ever want their customers to lose money because of that.
Hmm.
So
Greg, you speak in some of like the very true, and it's also a lot of people talk about the Securities Commission, okay, and I have like, because it's easy to shit at at them, but sometimes I look at crypto, I listen to them, and I'm like, they kind of make the point, because um like, I don't think Securities Commission is like source of all evil, like, and I think in US they actually do the better steps than anywhere else, because and I see like many actors, because there's a lot of institutions in crypto, and they operate in a way that in the legal world would be not legal, because it might be tax fraud going on, like, there is a lot of weird stuff sometimes going with the foundations, I believe. And I think securities is also like looking at that and doing like, no, you can't really do that. You might harm the users. Like, I don't think they're completely stupid people, right? Like, so what's your take? Like, do you think US taking right steps, and they will be able to regulate in the way that everyone is happy, and or it will maybe move out of the US? Because many people say it will leave US, and US, like even Celestia, they um there was the airdrop and is geo blocked for US, for example.
well, it's a big topic. Is US anti-crypto or pro-crypto? People are pro-crypto, government is anti-crypto. It's really that very
Mhm,
obvious. Not all branches of government. US has three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. Judicial seem to be pro-crypto and no pro like law
mhm,
and constitution. So crypto is great for American values, and
mhm,
courts recognize that. So courts are taking incredible action, sometimes even setting the law of the land. Is executive branch, which is headed by the president, is anti-crypto. It's very clear. I mean, the SEC and all the three-letter agencies work for the executive branch. They're not lawmakers. They don't make laws, but they do act like one.
Mm-hmm.
Some cases they're not supposed to. It's illegal. So in that, particularly SEC is an agency that's pretending to be a lawmaker, but they're really enforcement. They're police. They're not. They don't make laws.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretending they're lawmakers, and that courts have found that to be illegal. For the first time in a long time, courts essentially struck down on the notion that SEC cannot make new laws because they're going and saying everything is security, which is absolutely false, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is acting illegally. There's a rogue agency under the U.S. government that's acting illegally, and that's SEC. That's my stance. Are there people selling tokens as securities? Absolutely. Is there fraud? Absolutely. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think instead of just focusing on the fraud and the actual crime, they're taking down legitimate projects that haven't
Yeah.
committed a crime. Like absolutely, I don't think Solana committed a crime. And they're not even doing it in a fair way. They're not accusing Solana of like selling security, but going to Coinbase and saying that, hey, you listed Solana, which that's why it makes it security.
Yeah.
So it's a very dirty way of playing. So it's very obvious what's happening. Now, but on the other hand, you see like other branches of government. I think U.S. military I consider to be the most honest branch of the government. I think in most countries, military tends to be like the most less bullshit. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit in US theory, but less bullshit and less sort of like let's get to the chase. If this is useful for us to fight wars and win battles, it's useful. When you look at US Department of Defense, who they're using. I mean, recently there was a Marine officer that went on record that basically said they were experimenting with Akash internally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So US Department of Defense finds Akash useful to a point that they were experimenting. We don't know too much about what exactly happened, but yes, so there are branches of government that embraces crypto, and there are branches of government that don't like crypto.
Mm-hmm.
The branches of the government that are embracing crypto are ones dying for the nation and putting themselves out there really in front of the bullet. And people that are not embracing crypto are the ones that likes to work with banks
Mm-hmm.
and work with large institutions that don't like crypto. So there's obvious evidence of crony capitalism that's happening. So the current government is current administration is anti-crypto. Certain branches of legislation, not branches, certain sort of like sects in the legislative branch are also anti-crypto. Be it Senator Warren, they
Mm-hmm.
literally raised for the first time ever a war against a technology. This never happened in U.S. history.
I
right?
want to. So I want to like it doesn't really make sense. Why would the banks be against crypto? Because what I see, for example, with stable coins, right? You accept with the payments with the stable coins, and isn't it the chance for U.S. banks to dollarize the world with stable coins, strengthening their
Yeah.
position? It is because they could give access to the US stable coin to anyone in the world with that easily, cheap, fast payments, right?
Your
So
question is like, wouldn't U.S. stablecoins actually increase the dominance of U.S. U.S. power across the world versus like not? It's just
yeah,
that who makes money on the stablecoins? Is it the banks that are benefiting, or is it the companies like Circle or USDT that's benefiting? So that's really where the concern is. If the banks are benefiting out of it, they're going to be okay. If the banks are not, they're going to push legislation. Remember, Gary Gensler used to work for Goldman Sachs.
Mhm.
Is Goldman Sachs doing well in crypto? They're not. Why? Because they're just old. They don't understand new. So banks are afraid of anything that they don't understand, and they seem to be disrupting themselves.
Yeah.
So we're in the then they fight you stage, and then you eventually win. right? Because you will, because once people start realizing that crypto is great, people will start, and I'm seeing that turn around. Like recently, I was in New York, you know, at one of the Akash meetups in Mainnet, and we had somebody from Federal Reserve, like the Fed, come up to the meetup, an engineer, rightly so. I had a conversation with him, and he was fascinating the way the Federal Reserve looks at crypto. Right? They're actually, there's some sects of Federal Reserve that actually believe crypto is incredible, and some people that don't, and like anything, So it is in the hearts and minds of people, and they really seem to realize, and the people that I speak to are like extremely intelligent people that really know what they're doing. Um, and then there's just politics that are against, right? So right now it's not a technological game. I think it's more like they're using the bad aspects of crypto to demote crypto
Hmm.
and to pass legislation that's anti-crypto. And they're fighting. They're fighting very hard. And I'm very confident the next administration, uh, and I've met a few candidates, right, that are very, very pro crypto, and looking like these candidates are going to come in power. I don't know if you saw the thing yesterday, the
Uh,
getting testimony, but it was amazing to
I
see.
need to actually watch it. Like I didn't, right?
And you can see a clear shift in policy, clear shift in language from the lawmakers, clear indication that SEC is getting cornered, right? I mean, there are other agencies that are not as bad. I mean, agencies are agencies and
Mhm.
they enforce the law, but SEC seems to be the only agency that's going beyond and above to demote crypto, to like, right, to a dangerous levels, right, without making any sense. And they're losing in courts. The courts are saying you're doing something illegal. So it's very clear what's happening there. So there's a clear shift in like policy, and about 52 million people, Americans, you own crypto. I mean, that's like 1/6 of the population, right? So it is a big sect. And I was at a uh, event, and I see like candidates like Vivek Ramaswamy, who's like extremely pro
Yeah, he
crypto.
gets a lot of support from crypto people. From what I saw, I follow Vivek for quite some years. You know,
Yeah,
he
I met him last week. And he's incredible. He's
yeah, I
very.
followed some of his biotech companies, was like check-in, and at the end when his Axovan Sciences crashed, they rebranded. He left. I had even bought some stock. It didn't go anywhere. But like I followed Vivek because he was quite known in this like biotech industry. Like before, he was prominent media person like in that industry as well.
And I pray to God the current administration is not going to continue. I mean, I'm like I picked I chose a side now because the current administration is very anti-crypto,
Hmm.
and I don't think even Biden is running the government. So it's like this administration's come and go. It's only time, right? And I'm very confident the next administration, whoever that's going to be, is going to be a lot less hostile
Yeah.
for crypto, and it's looking like that. It's looking very,
Hmm.
very good. If I had to do my predictions, very unlikely the Democrats are going to win again, considering what they did to the country. Um, we're in shambles, right? So
You think they're gonna win again?
they will not.
Yeah, like
They-
I would. I'm not American, by the way, but like when you exist on like Twitter, you kind of feel like it's impossible. Like you feel no, it's like not gonna happen, and there are like still some people being like having that illusion. Like for me, it doesn't matter, but like you feel it's just not gonna happen, right?
I mean, I don't know. Like, just I mean, I'm not a political expert, and it's not my area of expertise to have political commentary. But just from like a layman, normal human being, talking to my sister, talking to my family, talking to like my friends, everybody I know that voted for Biden, at least I would say like 80% of the people that I know that voted for Biden are saying they will never vote for Biden again.
Yeah.
Um, is it going to be someone else? I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
don't, these are things that I don't have expertise in, but most people that are pro crypto, and if you ask them what's happening to their money, what the current administration is doing, they don't like it.
Hmm.
So you know, the current administration picked a war with a group of people that they don't need to pick a war, and that's what we are. So I see more enemies of the current administration than not, right? So then, and with everything else, like in terms of like the economy, which is a pretty important like indicator, people are the inflation is so out of control that you know people are finding it extremely hard just to go by their daily lives, and I think that's like really bad, right? So I think that's going to be a cornerstone of this election, the economy.
Yeah,
For whatever reason you think about the previous administration, at least the economy was great. Like we had a good bull market, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
so, you know, I'll be surprised if the current administration can like win again with the current state of the
Hmm.
election.
Yeah, like I agree with like all you say. I would be surprised if Democrats win this. As I said, I'm not American, right? And like this not political show, but like even with my own feeling, like it would be hard, like of someone who is in crypto, uh, to support the certain moves of the administration. And the great thing about US, I think you mentioned judicial system. I think it's very very strong and very healthy in US. You really have rule of law, and it's seen with some cases that this rule of law prevail. In many countries you would have not this chance. If government decides to do something, it's over.
Right.
But in
Right.
US you can sue, and if the right is on your side, you actually win, like, which is quite beautiful to watch. I had something in mind. Now I have on a, like, the Ripple case, right? Like that
Mhm.
really the judges think they are like really great judges, and like as I said, the rule of law
Yeah.
is really strong there. um I wanted to tell you the crypto that I know because of you, and I'm still having this. I was quiet about this handshake protocol. You were tweeting a lot about handshake protocol like 2 years ago, I think,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
o- over that. um I
I
bet
still
you,
haven't started of
yeah,
handshake.
I bet you have .akt, because I remember that was quite large sale, and I was like, that must have been Greg. And
What what
that
happened?
AKT, the HNS name. I bet you owe that, right? So
I think I have it.
yeah. So
AKT
so you're not following that much anymore, handshake, because you were very
I
like
do
you.
follow up. I still like the project. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just unfortunately the lot of the projects that I still do respect quite a lot have incredible theses and made some progress, but they
Yeah.
have failed to reach a threshold of progress
Hmm.
due to lack of coordination, due to lack of um, I guess I don't know, something the community started breaking down, right? I
Yeah.
think Handshake is still incredible. I still would support Handshake, right?
Yeah.
So Handshake, DVPN, and there are a lot of projects that I
Yeah, like,
actually
so these
like.
communities were like very like, so that was DVPN. I remember like this time was very active communities, and Handshake, Akash, and DVPN, they were like this all communities were all merging together on the Twitter, right? Like they
Yeah.
were, yeah.
And things just I think they stopped making enough progress on like on the protocol, right? So
Yeah.
and that it's kind of sad because like there's a lot of hope, a lot of incredible stuff, and I think people just lose out building on it. Like that's why it's important that we're looking at Handshake, looking at other protocols that had incredible ideas, couldn't quite see the day of the light. I believe it's because of lack of funding, right? So
Mhm.
that's why we have like public goods fund in Akash, or public goods pool that will fund initiatives to develop on Akash, right? So we're taking a lot of the lessons as to why these communities failed and what we can learn from them. Now, I might get a lot of hate when I say DVPN failed, but in all honesty, I don't think they're making enough progress that's
Mhm.
satisfactory.
Yeah.
That I would call satisfactory. There's a lot of opportunity there. I think they're really good people that worked on the project. I'm not blaming anybody, but it's just I don't know why they didn't like why they were not able to leverage this opportunity and really build, right? It's a difficult tech.
Yeah.
So could be bad co-founders, could be bad people. Sometimes it could be one bad apple in the whole like community that destroys the community, right? Like we saw that with Juno. It's really sad. Juno, it was like a simmering hope in Cosmos. It was a truly like community chain, and then it's one
Well,
mistake. Bill is enough for the chain to go down.
I think what we sometimes I feel with the networks there is lack of strong leaders like Greg Osuri. Uh,
Leaders?
because I see like the blockchains that are very much like founder driven. I'm not saying like there is many bad founders. There is different temper, but like those who end up being more successful are essentially those founder driven, right? Like you've been working on that for years, and there is other partner of yours, boss or something. You are like the duo, and you keep holding that together. And I think many blockchains, um some of those that are called like more community driven, like they can't, like they have nothing that holds them together. Essentially there is no guidance that they get, right? So I think sometimes being founder
Yeah,
driven is not bad.
as much as I hate being the central figure of certain protocol,
Yeah.
in the early days, that central figure gives quite a lot of like leadership, you know, and I think that's important for the community to rally. But there should come a stage where that should not be the case. And we're working very heavily to remove myself as this figurehead, right? Like
Mhm.
Akash Decentralized is built by 280 contributors around the world, but you
Mhm.
don't hear about all those 280 contributors. You only hear me and Boz or people that make the noise, right?
Mhm.
Because the challenge, like a lot of the people that actually build Akash, actually work on building Akash, writing code. And I read code, but not as much as other people.
Mhm.
Don't like to get on Twitter and talk things. So don't confuse me as the sole developer of Akash, even though I make the loudest noise. I just do make the noise because no one else want to do it. You know.
Yeah,
So I
it's
think it
as
takes
I
a good
said, you
balance.
are just the figure, right? And I think it's important for.
A lot of times it's like very hard to get the builders to talk. Um, and a lot of times I mean, it's like when I go in this like build mode, like last night I was coding. You clearly see the tweets, the difference in the tweets I do. Like when
Mhm.
I'm in the build mode, I'll be like tweeting about things I would discover in surprises I discovered in product itself. Right? I guess I would yesterday I was like trying to do SDXL, Stable Diffusion XL training on Akash, and I just ran into this thing which is like 13 cents A100. I'm like, that's fucking cool. I mean, like me as a user of the product itself, I'm delighted using the product. So when you see the tweets like that from me, I'm building.
Mhm.
When you see tweets like that are more generic and like more thought leader driven stuff is when I'm not actually like building, right?
Mhm.
So I come with a balance of both, but ideally I'd like to see more builders when they're not building tweet about Akash
Mhm.
on what they're building, because there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens on our GitHubs that doesn't really show up on on Twitter's. And uh, you can see a clear difference, like in a marketing team, like our marketing, like the people that manage Akash Twitter are very thoughtful and very builder driven more than like Schiller driven, right? Which is a kind of tone that I want to set. And I think that's the kind of tone that we want like our ecosystem as a Akash network to be set.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that needs to grow. So it's a very careful balance how to grow that. Like you can't have too many Schillers and then less builders. You can't have too many builders and then less Schillers. So it's like, you know, uh, I don't know the answer to the question, like what is the right way to go, to be honest
Mhm.
with you. I mean, still figuring that out, right? What's the
Um,
balance?
you like photography, yeah? I think especially
The
film
camera there
photography.
on my back. I don't know how much you can see, but
Yeah,
like
I'm not sure if I remember correctly. You were using Leica, yeah,
Leica is my favorite camera.
Leica, and it's film, right? Like you like film cameras, yeah.
Yeah, I do mostly analog photography, which is film,
Yeah.
and I love. I should. Are you coming to Cosmoverse?
I'm not. I'm not very much into events, and I'm just like community guy. So I think those events are mainly for developers, actually, for networking. Less. I also do way better online. I,
Yeah, I mean, the reason I was asking, like, I might bring my film camera if you want a
yeah.
photo. Happy to take it.
I'm saying because I like the, so I wanted to show you, look, like,
Oh,
so this is
yeah.
but I like point and shoots. So this is like Fujifilm. This is the 645 format. This is actually medium format point and shoot.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I love, I ask about this because I like film, but it's
Well,
usually point and shoots. I'm not sure is there.
it's a rangefinder. Is it?
What?
It's too small to. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. That looks like a rangefinder.
No, what do you mean?
Like when you focus on the in from the viewfinder, do you see like two things coming together, or do you see the
No, just
image?
one, just one. But it's
Hmm.
it's quite interesting because it's like horizontal view. It's quite but yeah, like it's my recent acquiry. Like a few weeks ago, my first like medium format. But I like to, I cannot find my contacts. I have like bunch of like, so this is a Ricoh GR1. So like I'm
Pretty cool. Yeah,
uh
Ricoh is one of my favorite cameras.
yeah, like I need to look after them better because I think these are nice collectibles, and like I'm obsessed going to camera store and buying like point and shoots for some reasons.
I didn't know they made a point and shoot medium format. That's
Yeah, this is pretty much only one. So exists is like so this is Fujifilm GA645
hmm.
ZI professional. So there is like the ZI is just the models. I will send you the model. But I took some pictures and I was really impressed how they look,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
because
medium
the
format is next level.
ease of use is like really like a point and shoot, and like you get the medium format vibe, right? Like it's
Well,
that
that's awesome. But can you adjust the aperture if you want to?
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
exposure?
So yeah, you have
Yeah.
the,
No,
you
look it
can,
up. I'm excited.
sorry.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I
I'm
will,
excited.
I will send you the model. So I think you would enjoy having it.
Yeah, I have a Hasselblad medium format six by
Oh,
six,
nice.
and I have a I don't know if I have other medium. I might have a Hasselblad digital as well in medium format, but
Yeah. Is it
it's
some
such
of the
a
newer one, or you have the old Hasselblad?
small. I have the camera that went to the moon,
Oh wow, that's insane. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
1965, right? It works amazingly well. It
yeah,
was the first camera used on the moon. Not that I'm in crypto, but
yeah,
some something to say about things I
yeah,
like that went to the moon. But it is a beautiful. I mean, it works brilliant when you see the picture in six by six on a medium format. There's nothing like it, right? Like no digital photo comes even close to
yeah,
coming to coming to the quality that a medium format. But I am surprised, but it's very bulky. So I can't take it everywhere. It's
yeah.
like this big, and I
Yeah,
need like a
obviously you
light.
cannot carry like them. Like you want to
Yeah,
carry this event, right?
I want
Or
a light. I had to carry a light mirror with it, and I have to do a whole lot of like equipment. I need to just go to. I just want something to go take pictures, right?
yeah,
Because now
yeah.
I'm not doing as much as photography as I used to.
So
Family, and
it's the old hobby. It's not new hobby. You were
I still do. I mean, I still like try to do photography. I mean, it's still my favorite things to do besides work. But right now, after moving to Austin, I've been more. I have less community here, so I don't
yeah,
go out much as I used to. Family, my priorities are like Akash and family, right? So it's like
yeah,
very hard to like go out off your zone, especially working from home. I don't get to go to the office as much. So when you're leaving the house less, you're most likely to not take that many photographs, right? So it's still my hobby, still my favorite hobby. If I have to have a hobby, I think photography is the only one.
yeah.
But Akash is getting to be very. Most of my time now is spent on like getting customers, right? So I
Mhm.
don't really. I would say like, fif- say like 60% of my time, if I had to break my day, is talking to users and customers.
Mhm.
and figuring out how to remove barriers. So when you have like that much dedication to towards this, it's very hard to do other hobbies. That's just the truth of it. Like,
The good thing with Akash is because like if there you will have these powerful servers, and if you will have a lot of them, like Akash could be one day very successful with like 500 large customers, right? Like this network doesn't have to be huge, but and less demanding compute could be used by smaller users, right? So you like can also tap to this to this two niches. But like it made me think for some reason about like Palantir. Like it's different market, but they have like 1,000 customers, and like it's or something like that, right? And they make a lot of money, and Akash could make a lot of money
yeah,
landing.
I mean, I don't think like getting one customer, like getting few customers, is like in our interest. Like today, I saw some stat. Don't know where, but it said 1% of global GDP will be used for machine learning very soon. 1% of global GDP.
Well,
Right.
that's quite a lot of that's quite a lot, quite a
And I
lot.
want Akash to be, to have a sizable market share of the 1% of GDP. So like I'm going to go, that's my metric of like success for
Mhm,
Akash, right? So we have an incredible opportunity. We have something Amazon, Google, and Microsoft does not have.
mhm,
What am I going to do with this opportunity at this time of my life, year of 2023, where we are pre-AGI, artificial general intelligence? We have a 98% conversion rate from AI devs. Yes, it's not as easy for someone to just go find Akash online and use it, but that's not going to stop me from talking to each customer and
mhm,
getting them to use it and figuring out what is preventing these people to use it easily in the first place and fix for it. Right. So I am going to optimize to get Akash usable as easy as possible without me while I'm going and taking out pictures of things. you
mhm,
know, I want to get to a point where I don't have to be heavily involved with the growth of Akash, and Akash just grows,
mhm,
right? That's my goal. So I'm not going to be optimizing for a few customers. I mean, of course, spend is very high, but I think success is lots of people, ideally an end user like you and I,
mhm.
uh, using Akash, because like sovereignty is going to be so critical for AI. I mean, privacy is a huge concern for AI. Like I was doing my taxes the other day, and I was like trying to figure out how much I spent on like healthcare because you get some tax benefits. I couldn't use a single tool. I mean, in this day and age, we have such incredible AI that can write code from like whiteboard designs. You're telling me you can't figure out how much I spent on doctors and how
Like
much
you
I
like
like
this is
like
such a so perfect idea what you just dropped.
simple.
Like
I mean, so many things in your life every day you look at like, okay, can you figure out how much my healthcare costs are going to be this year compared to my
yeah.
last year by looking at my health history and looking at my health costs and tell me how much I need to put in this like health savings account to optimize my taxes. By the way, I do not want my financial data to leave my house or my family's financial data or my family's health data. I wanted to make sure that I have full sovereignty as to who gets access to this data. I want to be fully compliant. Is there a world where I can have sovereign AI without compromising my privacy and still get the benefits of AI? That's the world I want to build towards, right? So, and that's why Akash is very, very critical for sovereignty, sovereignty on your data and your compute, and sovereignty on how much you want to pay in terms of cost and where you want your compute to go, right? So that's the mission, and that's very important. Now, today we have the choice of community AI, which is open AIs and built shared by a community. They are going to, their business model is to make money on you. You are what they're selling, right?
Mhm,
You are what is training ChatGPT. The question is, do you want to do that and live in a world where feudalism, that means very few people having a lot of control and a lot of power, or over freedom of choice
but-
and liberty, right? So that's really, we're at a very fundamental crossroads here with the AI,
mhm.
and Akash has to be successful for this future that we want, right?
Yeah,
So
100% because these few companies have actually head start in the AI right now, right? So it will be very difficult.
why? Because they have chips, and let's make sure that everybody else has chips. And that's really my goal, right? I want to make sure if If you're an AI researcher, you come to Akash and you're going to have chips, right? Um, so yeah, that's really the vision. So it's not going to be a few companies using Akash. It's going to be many, and ideally, it's going to be you and my wife and my kids using Akash, knowing that they have sovereignty over their data.
Yeah. Greg, this is very optimistic note about the future of AI, that we can have the um, sovereignty over our own AI. Um, it's been hour 40. It's slightly late, and it was absolute pleasure talking to you. Finally, I have learned a lot, and I hope people who watched have learned a lot. Um, is there any last words about Akash that you are not being asked, but you wish you were to be asked?
I guess that's words, huh? Well, there's quite a lot of confusion in terms of success, what considered to be success in crypto, right? A lot of people say, yeah, market cap and all that stuff. But ultimately, for me, it's it comes down to openness versus closed, right? There are a lot
Hmm.
of systems in crypto, even top 100 blockchains in crypto, that are fully closed source.
Hmm.
I don't want to name them, but they're fully closed source and it just bedazzles me. Like, how do you consider yourself to be a decentralized blockchain and fully closed source?
Hmm.
So I think it's very, very important for crypto to be open. And if they're not open immediately, at least have a roadmap. I understand early open sources may not be great. There could be other factors that prevent, but at least make a promise, make a commitment to open source.
Hmm.
Uh, and why? Because with closed source, yes, you can go fast because the coordination cost is low. Because it's easy when you know who you're working with, and when your source code is closed, you don't take as much as care in the way we write code as a builder, right? I've written both source, closed, and open. When I build open source software, I have a lot of care. I exercise, and I'm very careful what I put out because it's like writing putting your writing out, right? And when you do closed source, you just don't do it because you can just like you can code anything. You're likely to make a lot more mistakes in closed source than open source.
Yeah.
But open source, you have other people that have a say. And open source, even though closed source can go fast, open source can go far.
Hmm.
And that's the final note I want to give. So don't get confused in thinking that closed source software that can move fast is going to be successful. Yes, they can be, but not in crypto. Because and a lot of companies I've seen, even like big names that recently raised, I want to point out, but there's a company that raised quite a lot of money from who's who with the notion that hey, we're going to go tap into every like ETH miner that's mining ETH now has free GPUs to put it on for machine learning, right? There's a company that made a lot of noise. I mean, I don't know if it's not public token, so it's not a
Hmm.
crypto thing, but it's a lot of noise in AI. And and I had a conversation with them like recently, like as of last week, and they said we're dropping the whole crypto angle. I'm like, why? And because like, well, that was not very. We thought we could do that, but it's not very good. And so a lot of people are trying to abuse this like open
Hmm.
systems to build those systems. Watch out for those fraudsters. Like you don't always have. Watch out for people that have less integrity in terms of like what they promise when they fundraise to what they actually deliver. I don't. Pivoting is a good thing if it's not working out, but pivoting without trying is a bad thing.
Hmm.
Like, so if you have a thesis, and if you haven't even tried to implement the thesis and have a strong reason to pivot, but just pivot because you have better opportunity and you have money, it's not, anywhere close to having integrity, right? So that's why be very, very wary of companies, closed source companies that pretend to be open source. Some of them just raise money and not launch open systems. Some of them launch a product without having any sense of open source. A lot of them will, it's trick you into thinking they're decentralized, but they're not. So that's we as an industry have to self-regulate and just be wary of these networks.
Yeah.
Without that, the other great networks will not get the enough attention and enough like usage.
You heard it here, Greg dropping some wisdom and why open source for the win. uh, I mainly agree with all what you say. So thank you, Greg, for your time. I hope you will have a great day. Hope it's not too busy. It's
It's
wholly
great.
ahead. So
I
yeah.
do realize I have a meeting in 10 minutes, so totally forgot, but
You
let's
don't
get.
have any meetings now,
I
or
do have a meeting. I have meetings all day today. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, so gonna go
okay?
grab some coffee and get the day
No
rolling.
worries. Enjoy it. Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Marcin. Happy. Well,
Thank
it
you.
was really good to do a live interview. This is the first one I'm doing in a long time, so
Yeah. Thank you very much. Bye bye.